This is a 7-minute version of a sermon, Mistrials of Jesus. I preached a 45-minute version of this you can find on our church's website, graceintheberg.com. With no wasting of time, I opened with a story of Atticus Finch, who was a lawyer who was representing an innocent man, Tom Robinson, for crimes against a white woman. Tom Robinson was a black man in the South, and the jury declared he was guilty, 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 even though he was an innocent man. It was because of racism and bias that they declared this man guilty, guilty, guilty. And I use this as an illustration of how Jesus was an innocent man who was declared guilty, guilty, guilty by religious leaders, by political figures, and by the crowds. So this led to the big idea for the sermon: give your guilt to God, he can take it. Give God your guilt, he can take it. We're going to see in this story Jesus remaining silent while he's tried and mistried by Herod, by Pilate, and by the crowds. So with no further ado, let's go to the text. We've been through the first 22 chapters of Luke, and we see Jesus has tremendous resolve. He's going to face his death. He's going to also come face to face with two political characters who showed up early in the Gospel of Luke. We see Pontius, Pilate, and Herod referenced in chapter 3 of Luke. Something to note about Luke: Luke was a historian, he was a theologian, and he was a pastor. So he references all sorts of characters, dates, times, and places to say, I did my homework, I'm trustworthy. Let's get to the text. Luke 23, verses 1 through 25. We're going to be introduced to Herod and, more importantly, the three accusations or charges against Jesus. You'll see them on the screen here. Jesus was accused of subverting the nation, opposing payment to taxes to Caesar, and claims to be Messiah. These were false charges, and we're going to see there are three false charges, and then three times that Herod says, this man is innocent, but the crowd is going to win Herod over, and he doesn't want an uprising. So as we go through the scene, we learn a little bit more about Pontius Pilate, often referenced not only in Scripture, but outside of Scripture and in literature, especially the Bible. He is a symbol of the state, secular power, material world, ignorance and darkness. He is all men facing, considering, and ultimately rejecting truth. Pilate is a picture of me and of you saying, I can stare truth in the face and deny it because I'm more concerned about what the crowd says and maintaining my own power. We'll see that outside of the Bible, like in Josephus's Jewish Antiquities and Jewish Wars, Pilate is mentioned as a religious or as a political figure, a friend of Caesar, and someone who caused distress for the Jewish people. Moving forward, Pilate talks to Jesus and says, are these claims true? Are you king of the Jews? This is the only time that Jesus speaks in this story, and he says, it's as you say. And then we see Jesus resolved to remain silent the rest of the story. And so Pilate has to deal with the crowds who are, again, saying, but this man stirs up all of our people. We're going to see here that the religious leaders are trying to work with the political figure and get Jesus executed. And we know that religion and politics is a dangerous mix. So I spoke about this yesterday. You've all probably experienced this. In fact, if you want to make some stir during the holidays, what you might do is bring up religion or politics around the dinner table at Thanksgiving or Christmas. Good luck with that. We cannot completely separate our religious views from our political views. We're going to vote our values. Yet we do not want to, what we've seen in church history, have the state become a persecutor of people who don't believe the same thing. So we move forward in this story. And we see that Pilate then sends Jesus to Herod, another leader who oversees Galilee. Herod and Pilate are both guilty of the death of Jesus. So are the religious leaders of the day. So are the crowds. And what the scripture says is we're all guilty of sin. And so we want to give our guilt to God. He can take it. Jesus took it for us. We see a profile of Herod, who was one of three Herods that's referenced in the Bible, and he was the one who had John the Baptist killed. Herod wants Jesus to speak, can't get him to speak. And so he does the next best thing. He mocks him, sends him back to Pilate, and Pilate and Herod become friends. But here's a principle that this teaches, that common enemies form fickle friendships. If your friendship is based upon a shared animosity or hatred towards someone, like, oh, I hate that sports team, or I don't like that boss, or you and a friend both had a boyfriend break up with you, and now you're fast friends because of that, just know that that's a fickle friendship. That's the kind of friendship that Pilate and Herod had, and it's not going to last. Better friendships last when you have a shared love, not a shared hatred. Moving forward, we see that Pilate tries to declare Jesus innocent for a second and third time. He even says that Herod didn't have a reason for calling Jesus guilty here. Pilate's going through a common trial, and he has no reason to consider Jesus guilty. So he says, I'm going to punish him and release him. But the crowd wants nothing to do with this. They say, let's have Barabbas instead. And they start shouting, crucify him, crucify him. It's much like the scene in To Kill a Mockingbird, guilty, guilty, they declare. And so we move forward. Pilate continues to say, no, I want to release him. The crowd continues to demand that they should release Barabbas and crucify Jesus. And Pilate doesn't want a riot on his hands, so he delivers Jesus. What we have here is a picture of mob justice, and mob justice is not the best way to do justice. In fact, mob justice, you could say, is injustice. This takes me back to Atticus Finch and what he said. He said, there's something in our world that makes men lose their heads. They couldn't be fair if they tried. And we see this was the case with Jesus's trial. It wasn't a fair hearing. Jesus was innocent, but the people declared him guilty, guilty, guilty. But here's the good news for us. The good news for us is that Jesus can take our guilt. In fact, we should give God our guilt. He can take it. Give God your guilt. He can take it. So as I rounded out the sermon, I gave 3 applications that we could live out. And those include, first, inspect yourself. You have guilt. I have guilt. We all have guilt. We should look at the speck or log in our own eye rather than pointing out all the flaws in other people. The second thing that I said was that we should receive forgiveness. We declare our guilt to God. He can take it. We receive his forgiveness. He gives it. And he is so gracious to us in that. And the more we receive forgiveness, the more we realize we are loved, and then we are more likely to extend mercy. So there you have it, folks. Give your guilt to God. He can take it. Give God your guilt. He can take it. A sermon in 7 minutes.